So this morning I came across a woman's page. Her name is Janetta Bradley, and she is an audio engineer. And what she did was she took some time isolating portions from the July 4th, 2026 of the CETO call. And instead of using AI generated enhancement, she used a conservative approach to listen to the call. And I'm going to play that call for you.
Okay, so before I play this, I want to quickly explain what I did, what you're looking at on the screen, and why I chose to approach this audio the way that I did. As a professional audio engineer with experience in dialogue editing, dialogue cleanup, sound design, and post-production, I decided to work on that CTO call using traditional audio processing techniques rather than relying on any AI voice separation or AI enhancement. My goal was pretty much to preserve as much of the original recording as possible while making the quieter dialogue and background audio easier to hear. So I basically used techniques such as subtractive EQ, compression, gain adjustments, noise reduction, frequency isolation, and other traditional processing methods. So what I did was I separated Vicky, the CTO dispatcher, from Warren and the audio originating from the boat so that I can concentrate more closely on what was happening behind and around Warren, pretty much on the boat. And I specifically chose not to rely on AI because aggressive AI enhancements and voice isolation tools can sometimes introduce artifacts and distort the speech or create ambiguity around the sounds that were originally present. And for something this serious, I wanted my processing to remain as conservative as possible. You'll also notice time code and dialogue written on the side of the screen and pop up during each segment. That dialogue represents what I personally hear as an audio engineer while processing and repeatedly reviewing these sections. I'm pretty much providing it as a listening reference, not as a declaration that my interpretation is the only possible interpretation. And that's important. I want you to listen for yourself, use headphones if you have them, listen closely, and decide with your own ears what you believe is being said. You can also return to the original unprocessed recording and compare it directly with what you're hearing here. You'll also notice that my time code may not match the regular timestamp on the original uploaded video. And that's because I'm working inside a professional post-production timeline, a digital audio workstation, basically using SMPTE time code, which in film, that's displayed in hours, minutes, seconds, and frames. Film and TV timelines are completely different from timestamps that you see when you're watching regular videos or when you're watching a movie and you hit pause. So basically the time code on the screen is there to identify the precise location within my working session, not to represent the elapsed timestamp displayed by the original video player. And I hope that makes sense. For this first video, I'm sharing only approximately 37 seconds of the call. I originally intended to continue much further, but once I separated the dispatcher from the boat and started concentrating exclusively on the background dialogue, what I believed I was hearing became extremely difficult for me to process emotionally, and I needed to take a mental break. But I wanted to release this portion because some of the details that stood out most to me occur very early in the call, like right at the top of the call. And so I'm gonna let the audio play. Read my transcription if you want to reference, but don't allow it to determine what you hear. I want you to listen first, listen again, compare it with the original recording, and then judge it with your own ears. I hope this breakdown helps. And my
Hey, we're at the west tip of Horn, and our bilge pump stopped working. We're sinking. Can y'all please come? We have a membership. Shut up! Shut the fuck up!
I listened to the call. There was only one thing that I could clearly hear. I couldn't hear everything else everyone else could hear. I just heard bark. So the first thing I did from there is I looked at the interview where Bart was mentioned. This is a interview on the Officer Tatum's page, but this is all that you can hear about Bart's name and what he was doing. What I thought was interesting is a Warren's family put this post out on July 7th to make note of times. I'm not going to read this whole post, but I'll put it up there for you all to see. She mentions that the last time Warren saw Nolan was at around 3 p.m. on July 4th. They left around 4:30 p.m. when the boat was taken on water and they had an issue with the pump. Now, this seems something to just scan in a little bit, and I'm not going to make assumptions, but this it does bring up some questions for me, and you all maybe can add some clarity if you go on boats and things of that nature. So when you pair the call and you pair this line about the 3 p.m. to 4:30 p.m., so Warren is on the boat. Everyone else is on the boat. Nolan is saying that he doesn't want to be on the boat, but the last time Warren sees him is at 3 p.m. So if there is any explanation out there about the 3 p.m. to 4:30, what's happening during that time? Why is it that when it's 4:30 and you're pulling off, and correct me, anyone on the that's what I'm hearing so far in the narrative that put out there from those who are involved in the case. Why is it that we can hear to get on a boat, get on the boat, get on the boat? Why do we hear that, but there's nothing turn around to see that he's talking to someone that you saw at 3 p.m.? Is it that you just heard it and it was on the other end of the boat? You heard saying that and he was like aggressively saying that, but you couldn't see or turn around and see him having that interaction around 4:30 when the boat is pulling off? Or was this around 3 p.m.? I don't know if you all are dissecting it, but let me know if I'm missing something there. I want to clear that up for myself. Warren is starting to speak out and he's telling the story and he was somebody that was there. So we put all those things together. It seems like something to review, something to present quality questions. Not to make an assumption, but to clear things up. And the last thing I would clear up is, although we understand that when you're on the island, people don't have their phones. We do understand that people go back and forth with their phones. That might be to take pictures. That also might be um, to take a video. But if no one is deciding to leave, why wouldn't he want his phone? Because he's departing. It's not like he has the boat to go back to get his phone if he's ready to take a picture. If there might not be great cell service, but at one point, if he's departing from the people that he came with, no matter what those people look like, or whoever he came with, why wouldn't he want his phone? His key being at the house makes sense because his car is at the house and he's coming back to the house. But if he is going to depart from you all and he doesn't have his phone, why wouldn't he take his phone to the next boat so that he can go back and forth with that boat? Because he brought his phone to the original boat for some reason. He didn't bring his keys because it didn't make sense, but he did bring his phone to a boat. So if he's departing from this group, it seems that he would want his phone to go to the next boat. So even if he's not going to be on his phone, if he's not going to be taking pictures, he's at the very least going to want his phone because he's no longer using this boat because the boat is going off. But I'm just going to end it here with this recording and to be mindful about being a thorough investigator with everything in your life. Don't jump to assumptions because of what you want to hear. And when I listened to the audio, I could not hear everything that everyone else is hearing. So I would say practice with closing your eyes and hearing what you hear as best as you can, because it's like a telephone game. Somebody's going to hear this, somebody's going to hear that, someone's going to be sharper here, someone's going to be weak in here, somebody might be manipulated here, and all the things. The last thing I want to say is this seems to be a valid place to start to lean into, because we do know this was a real call based off of Warren, who was at the case. And this is what he's saying. We also have this note from his mom saying that there was a call, and we have these timestamps. The only thing that you need to be careful with is this is someone online, Janetta, who decided to, this is someone online, Janetta, who decided to create her own investigation based off of her skills, but we don't know the source completely. Maybe go to her page and see if you can find those answers if you're really invested in this. But I think that it's interesting. At the very least, I won't go one way or the other because I was not there. But if we're talking about doing our best to get to an answer that makes sense, doing our best to have a fair investigation, it shouldn't be up to social media to do these things. But the reason why social media feels like they have to do this thing, the reason why a Ben Crump or an Al Sharp even had to come into a picture, is because some reason in the gut of the mother's heart, or in the mother's heart, she felt like she was not being heard and she needed attention. This is what social media is about. It's about attention. The only thing about having so much attention is that you'll get the wrong attention, you'll get the bad attention, you'll get aggressive attention. But somewhere out there, there's going to be attention to detail. There's going to be someone who's going to nurture this with care. And you can't get rid of all of social media because of cases like that. And the last thing I want to say is people are upset because of the attention on the case. But if you're a parent that loves your child, as I mentioned before, I would be talking to everybody. I would be talking to the parents. I would be on the interviews. I would be everywhere and all over the place trying to figure this out. And this, I'll have to admit, is why this case is so interesting to me, because it is close to home. It's close to what I've known and what I've seen. And we don't want to make everything about race, but that doesn't mean that people don't have that scar or that soft spot there, because things have been about race. If you're being honest and thorough, you have to approach these things and realize that a history occurred because we're supposed to learn from it. And one thing we have to learn from history is there has been evidence that have been covered up. There have been evidence that people don't even know about because there was no social media to blast it or bring attention. We also know that there is evidence that no one really sat down with a group of people who were harming other group of people and gave them therapy or had some kumbaya session. There might have been some marches, but when did we actually heal what was going on when people decided to make those choices? Did we just hop and say everything is good again? And things have corrected itself. All people aren't the same people. You look at a person for who they are, but there's a lot of things that we avoid because we want to go over those scars and those wounds. But those are scars and wounds that cause people to do those things. And it's the only reason why people feel the way that they do. So whether you're on one side or the other, look at the entire story. None of this comes to surface because people want this to be true. I'm sure people don't want to live or believe that everything is about race. But evidence, history, patterns, we just don't avoid those things. But we should be careful. We should be careful that our emotions don't make us hear something that we don't hear, see something that we don't see, or make up things that we don't have evidence of. Our spirit and our guts are good indicators for sure, but sometimes they could fool us. So how do we practice being mindful of that? And so when I'm bringing this part of the case, it's just something that made sense for me to just put them all together. I would say look at it in that way. Now, I'll also mention this, that I don't know much about this audio, but when I close my eyes, which is I want you all to do and you listen to it, I did hear Bart. And then I connected it to another Bart, and that's all that I did. That's all that I have. But maybe in some of these spaces, some people can fill in the gaps in here.